Hello everyone, what is up? Today we're gonna just be talking about like what do I automate inside of a song sort of thing, because someone asked that quite a while ago. I have tried to record this video a few times, but it ends up coming out too long, so that's kind of what the delay on that is. So I'm just gonna go quickly talk about this inside Reason, because I already have a song that has quite a bit of like automation being done in it. So then we can kind of talk about it. So automation, obviously, like what you want to automate is largely subjective, but I would say there's a few things that you like absolutely must automate, sort of. And these would be filters and any sort of volume amplitude modulation. Those are the most commonly automated things, I would say, across all music. Reverb, like mix-ins or volumes, would be a very common thing to also automate. I love to do that as well, and sometimes like to automate the overall level of the reverb in different parts of the song. And I also like to automate where my low cuts are in certain instruments, so that way they just sharply turn to something else after an 8-bar period, where say I bring in a bass sound, so I take away more of the low end of something that didn't really have that much bass, but it was still there. But I didn't want to take it away in the first place, because I don't want to remove all the fullness of it in the start of a song where there is no bass. So that's where I could have done something like that. This project's pretty laggy because it's pretty full. So that's what's up here. So here's an example of what I was talking about here. I have this Fab Filter, like band 1 frequency modulation going on here. And if we come get that frequency, let's see. So in here I have Fab Filter Pro Q, and it's just going to get like automated. So it's like, you know, pretty open right now. Because if we listen to the sound as it is here, there's a bit of bass in there, but when it gets over to the 8 bars, it went away. Now, it wasn't enough bass for it to be like some strong fat bass that's like filling up your mix or anything. However, when I bring in, say, the low end here of my strings, which isn't even yet, but I think I have a vocal line starting and stuff, so I kind of want the mix to be a little more emptied out. And then I come into a part where I bring in some bass in my strings. So I definitely do not want that to be clashing in any sort of way with this, which means I should also probably have that duplicated there then, shouldn't it? So now they work, you know, better together. And there's no clashing. Now, we can listen to the song just to get a little bit of perspective, like up until, like, I don't know, before the drop, because I'm not going to go into the drop, really. So, we can listen to this chunk of song, and then I can talk about what I'm automating. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at there. And to your surprise, and to my surprise, there actually isn't a lot of automation. That's like, you know, every 8 4 bars, you just have like all these like consistent like line graphs like this. You don't just have these like everywhere I'm going. You know, because that's nice. But for example, when I started making music, whenever I had my instruments, I always had them fade in with filters or volume. And that was basically my whole song until I got to a drop, and then it would, like, at the outro was the exact opposite, and everything would fade out slowly, and, like, that's fine. However, it's boring and cheesy, and everyone knows what you're doing if you just leave it that way. So what you need to do is a little extra stuff, and you're probably going to use most of that to construct your song and arrange your song in a way where it's not boring. However, the automation is still important to have, like, in the background, or even to make those sounds that are going to be, you know, bigger changes, or change the way that, like, we're going to do our transitions and stuff. So, for example, I have, like, a bounced out ARP sound here that I made. I have that. That's just a reverb fade in. And then the one on top is, like, the volume of it coming in, I believe. Can't be too certain. Yes, it's just the volumes coming in. And I just mix that in with the rest of my song. And that helps. So they have some volume automation. And there's, like, reverb here with volume automation from, like, say, like, the first note of it in the line here, up in this MIDI here. If I open this MIDI, probably took, like, this note. And then I just put a ton of reverb on it, and then I bounced it out, and then I reverse it and stick it there. So that's, you know, important. And I do a lot of sounds like that more than I would do, say, sounds that are, like, automated in. Because if I automate all this stuff in, it's not going to sound as, like, impactful when we change to a transition, like, say, the part for the build. It doesn't sound nearly as impactful if we've just been filtering all the instruments in there up to that point. It's nice to just drop in the instruments with, like, little to none automation, or, like, pretense of where the sound is coming from. What I like to use a lot, which I wouldn't really call automation, however, in this situation, I am automating it because I'm automating, I want to control the reverb on the sound, so that way it's just not, because I want it to be a lot of reverb, but I want the reverb to go away fairly fast, which means you do need to automate it if you want it to work like that. Because you can't just trust the decay time itself to do exactly what you want it to do, because, like, I can't get my decay time to do this right here, this kind of curve, right? Same thing with my delays. If I want them to come in, like, a little later, because I don't want it to be clogging up this sound until it's done, so then I can have it just fade in like so. And that's something that I would automate. It's not, you know, I wouldn't say very common, or something that you would learn on YouTube. They wouldn't be like, best things to automate, and they'd be like, your delay, wet, dry. That's something you just have to experiment with, because it doesn't always work. But there's a lot of volume automation with, like, say, cymbals or samples going on here. And that helps a lot with the transition. With those, you don't even really need to filter in any sort of sounds. For the drop, I did filter in some sounds before the build starts, because it sounds pretty weird when I just change the whole instrumental without any pretense. So I like to bring it in, I think, about a bar or two beforehand. Over here. So that way, when I change the whole instrumental, you don't even really think about it. You're just pleased about all these, like, new sounds, different chord progression, and different style of atmosphere. And I went from this whole rhythmic thing to, like, really open sort of sounding, minorly orchestral instrumentation. And then I bring back, you know, the drums I had before, along with some new elements, and then those elements are a little shared in the drop. And it just goes like that. Now, I am doing a lot of filtering in here in the, say over here in the build. I have my filterings being done, some volume being done. But for example, here I have, you know, this sort of thing here that goes, like, pretty crazy. So I want to filter that in, because I don't want it to just sharp start right at the start of this, because I want the transition to be a little more smooth in that regard. So let's listen here. Because if I just muted both of these and listened to this, well, it's going to be laggy, obviously. But if you could hear that, it kind of comes in much sharper right off the bat. And I like it to be, you know, more smooth instead. And then I have a filter at the end here. This is for high passing purposes. And what this is going to do is, you know, high pass them a bit so they get more room gets opened up before the drop, and all the bass goes away when the bass comes back in the drop. It's to build the tension. And then I drop it so I can do like a little fill. But I just bring it up a little bit. There wasn't a lot of bass to begin with in this sound because I, you know, mixed it in or whatever. So that wasn't too much of a problem, but that's what I did with that. So, you know, in the drop, or the fills, the build, it's just automation of high passes. I think if we check this one, it should be just an automation of a nice little high pass filter with its resonance right here. So I'm just automating this up to kind of make it look, if I can turn these on for a second, to make it kind of move around like this, just to get the drums to, you know, kind of come up with a swoosh sound and then like drop again before the actual drop. So that way all the harshness comes back. Because you can hear the drums come back down. And that's, you know, sounds nice. There's no real technical reasons for why you would do these, except for the fact that, you know, high passing or doing something with filters and that does control energy levels, and that's good for, you know, in use in a build for sure. So that's where I like to use my filters, is in my builds and my drops, not too much in any of my other parts of the song. I like to use reverb and volume automation in the other parts of my song and save the filtering for kind of the builds and drops. Yeah, and here's one nice thing to point out. I have these string sounds here. I'm automating them kind of funny. Versus just letting them completely play through, like just from start to finish. I threw that, you know, this volume modulation in to really, really help with the dynamic range and atmosphere of the pre-build right here that I've got going on. But I also have a bass coming in here, and this is not being automated like that at all. It's just going straight at it. And that's fine, because what this does is it helps keep the violins satisfied. When those breaks come in, there's still bass playing. So they're definitely filling up each other's space, and that's great. Combine that with our harp here. And that sounds magnificent. And then obviously, you know, there's some more stuff we did in there. We have a piano going on. And it helps fill up the space. There's some problems with the MIDI in the piano, but I mean, it doesn't actually really make it sound horrible or anything, so it's probably fine. And just using cymbal transitions with some minor volume, and that's great. Here, I'm affecting the overall dry-wet balance of my delay for my piano. Piano, right? Sure, the piano, yes. So, for example, I've brought it down here to 39 Nope. If I can grab it. Can I grab it? Just let me grab it. 30% opposed to what we had over here, which was 43%. So I had it more intense here. And then when it comes into the pre-build, I bring down the delay. So that way it doesn't interfere with, like the harp and stuff that's going on. That's great. And then I just, I don't even filter out the sine plucks or the strings I had going. I just drop them completely. And like, that's the end of that. I've got some self-made sort of sound effect here. Goes like this. And I use that and I'm filtering it shut with a filter. And that's, something nice to do because that delay would just go on forever, but I want the delay effect to be there again. So I'm trying to control the delay effect in that manner. I have some reverb here on my vocals. Oops, let's maybe just go to the rack and just take the whole vocal set and solo it so we can hear that. So I have some reverb here being mixed in, and I don't remember if it's from the Vox. Yeah, it's from here. I could just end up dropping it here for like no reason too. So that way, when the next vocals come in, they're just dry right away. Because there's a transition here, so we won't even notice that even happen. But I, did automate in some reverb, and that helps the vocals like fill up just the last bar of that 8-bar set while some other stuff comes in, and it just complements it real nice. As far as automation for the rest of this goes, there's nothing really being automated in the rest of the song really at all, with the exception of my rise I made with Serum, but like that's not really automation. And I mean, I have some vocal ambience that I made. I already showed this in the previous song, and I made, or not previous song, previous video, and I made these to complement the drop, the build and stuff, and they're kind of being automated, I guess. Like they have some like volume automation. Same thing with this other ambient sound. I don't know if it's being played. It's not being played because I don't know where it is, but it sounds like this. But as volume automation, some other stuff going on. And then the automation I have right here is just a little altar boy that I was using for something. I don't remember exactly what for.
Always keep coming back. Always keep coming back. Make the promises that never left.
Yeah, I was automating the pitch to like make up for the fact that it wasn't actually in pitch, and I didn't want to like, I wanted to make it sound like, kind of robot-y, like in that manner. I don't know how it would sound anymore because that was a while ago.
Always keep coming back. Make the promises that never left.
Yeah, like it just doesn't really fit anymore at all, honestly. But yeah, it's something else automated. Like, I mean, what should you automate? You should just automate whatever you want. As you can see here, I'm just automating whatever I want. I like to automate devices that are on and off. I like to automate mixes of things like chorus or reverb or delay or flangers, etc. I like to modulate rates of things. Like there's this plugin I use for this bass over here. Up, 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 over in the drop. And there's something called a ducker in Reason. It's a rack extension. And what it basically is like LFO tool. Like you can attach the CV to a filter. So you can it's basically like LFO tool from, what's that company? X4 Records. And you just make something, but by default it controls volume. So I like to modulate the rate on this, and I like to modulate the mix amount all the time. I have some sounds in here where I'm right in the middle of the sound. I'm modulating the rate if I can find it. Yeah, like here. I have these like sharp turns here where I switch the rate to something a little slower, start it fast, slow it down, just like on rhythm, not because it's on, you know, it's connected to the beats. It's not connected to hertz. So that's how that's working. But even that I like to automate, and I like to automate the mix and stuff as well. So, and then obviously I made a re, so I'm going to automate that as well. If I have a re sound, I'm going to just automate it because that's a big premise of the sound itself. And yeah, so that is all you need to know about automating is just do it, because it's great, but don't overdo it. I mean, you can overdo your automation, just don't make it like bad or like cheesy or something. Like if everyone can tell like you're automating something and it's obvious to everyone, then it's kind of not too artistically creative anymore. If it's like just if it's cheesy, that means everyone knows what it is. Like, and like, you know, cheesy dubstep, okay, Skrillex, because you know everyone's heard of Skrillex. He's been going on forever, and anyone who tries to, you know, make that kind of same type of dubstep or whatever is going to be like, oh, that's cheesy, and they're referring to the fact because, you know, they've heard it before from Skrillex, and they're going to be like, everyone's going to know what that is. And that's kind of what I mean by cheesy, is like someone's going to be like, oh, nice, like low pass automation. It's like it's not clever, it's not really doing anything, it's just you just have this awkward like filter in of drums, and it doesn't complement what it's being done with that well. Then that's kind of cheesy, and you might need to rethink the way you're automating that, or what it is you're automating to make it come in. Do you need to automate it at all, or does it just pop up? Stuff like that. And yeah. So thanks for watching. See you next time.